Welcome. We are a diverse, multi-generational faith community that inspires lives of compassion and generosity, nurtures spiritual growth, cultivates transformative connections, and creates a more just world. After today's service, there will be a congregational meeting starting at 11:45. Our call to worship. In these darkening days, we enter two seasons, Advent and Hanukkah, seasons of light. Advent, a time of waiting and preparing for the birth of Jesus. Hanukkah, a time of rededication and witness. Both remind us to dedicate ourselves to bringing the miracles of love and light to a world waiting to be reborn.
We light this chalice in the spirit of patience. May the days we wait be days of reflection and learning. May we emerge from the wait wiser, stronger, and feeling renewed. In that same spirit, we light this menorah in honor of the fourth night of Hanukkah. We remember those who waited, who believed, who persisted. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvoto v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah.
Light one candle for the Maccabee children, with thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied.
Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice justice and freedom demand.
And light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are suffering the pain we learned so long ago.
Light one candle for all we believe in, that anger won't tear us apart.
And light one candle to bring us together with peace as the song in our heart. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. What is the memory that's valued so highly? We keep it alive in that flame. What's the commitment to those who have died when we cry out they've not died in vain?
Have we come this far, always believing that justice would somehow prevail?
This is the burden and this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears.
I don't know about you, But this is the time of year when it seems like all we do is wait. And it's so hard to wait. Holidays are all around us, with presents and lights and food and songs and games. I just can't wait for them. This year, though, it's even harder. So many of us find ourselves stuck in between all that this season brings and all that this 2020 season is. In this December of profound stillness and anticipation, not only are we waiting for holidays to warm our spirits and senses, we find ourselves waiting for the time when we can be together in the same physical space again and share laughter and hugs without the internet freezing us in place. We're waiting and hoping for a sense of security, peace, and respect to come into our daily lives. We're waiting for medicine, food security, learning, and love. There is so much we are waiting for, and sometimes it can seem like we have done so much waiting. Perhaps we begin to think, you know what? I have waited long enough. And it can be tempting to jump ahead and do the things we're supposed to wait for right now. When I get those thoughts and begin to think, oh, what would be the harm in getting people together for just one little dinner? Or maybe I should just open that one present now. That's when I pump the brakes a little bit and look to my Unitarian Universalist faith for guidance. One of the 6 sources of Unitarian Universalism is the rich Jewish and Christian traditions. And they offer great advice about waiting and patience. In the story of Hanukkah, when the Jewish Maccabees enter their temple and stay there with a huge army nearby, they find only a tiny bit of sacred olive oil to light their menorah lamp with. They know that they need 8 days to make more olive oil to burn, but they only have enough for 1 day. It probably would have been very tempting for them to get impatient and say, well, we don't have enough. Let's leave today and see how our luck fares against whatever is out there waiting for us. If they had, the story might have been very different. Instead, they waited. They were patient. And they were rewarded with the miracle of 8 nights of light and warmth. Their story is part of what keeps my faith in the light of science during today's pandemic. The Christian tradition holds this time of waiting as sacred as well. Since November 29th, we've been in the time of Advent, when the Christians patiently wait for the celebration of Jesus' birth. This time is incredibly important because it helps us learn how to be patient and about the power of hope. In many ways, the waiting is more important than the reward. What we do and how we treat each other before hard times are resolved is the true reflection of who we are inside. By waiting and thinking and reflecting, we learn a lot about ourselves and the work that is necessary before we celebrate the outcome. Advent teaches me that while opening a present today might be easy, choosing which gift I'm going to share with the world is tough but essential. While celebrating the passing of a regime or the end of a pandemic, that's a wonderful thing. Keeping the light of hope alive while that regime or pandemic has power over us is the real victory. If I wear a mask and Zoom with you today, I help tomorrow's salvation to be born. The time will come, my friends. That is the Advent message I share. May it bring us hope as we wait and wait and wait and wait.
Hello, my name is Susan Meredith, and I'm a member of the Pastoral Care Team. In this spiritual community, we remind ourselves each week that joy and woe are woven fine. Some of us bear burdens made lighter as others help us carry it. Some of us hold joys that shine more brightly as others reflect our delight. This week, Joyce Sullivan is delighted to welcome 2 new great-grandchildren to her family. Oliver, son of Willow, who lives in Wisconsin, and Camden, son of Mike, who lives in New Jersey. Hooray, says Joyce. And Jen Kapanov is very happy to share that her brother's bone marrow transplant was a success and healing can now begin. Many thanks to the community for all of your love and support. Together, let us give thanks for this community of care.
The words for today's meditation come from Cricket Hall. In this time of waiting, may we hold the world in our hearts. In this time of waiting, may we hold each other's hands. In this time of waiting, may we be thoughtful and introspective. In this time of waiting, may we delight in the darkness and all it teaches us. In this time of waiting, may we rekindle the fires of hope, love, joy, and peace within ourselves and our communities. In this time of waiting, may we become ready for the coming day. In this time of waiting, may we hold the world in our hearts. Amen, and blessed be.
Hi, I'm Lurleen DeVos from the Social Justice Council and the Kids Service Team. Growing up in an Episcopal tradition, I love the month before Christmas and the arrival of our annual Advent calendar. Advent was a time of anticipation, a time of hope as we looked forward to Christmas. We were supposed to focus on the miracle of the birth of Jesus, the Son of God. But I mostly remember dreaming about Santa and gifts. Each day of the Advent, a small gift in the calendar foretold coming of Santa and more larger gifts. As a UU, the story of Christmas and Jesus' birth has taken on a different meaning for me. I affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And I believe that every child is sacred and every child is deserving of love and care. So this year, when the annual Thanksgiving KST pie making was lost to the pandemic, I worried about how to care for our congregation's children. They love this tradition. These are children we're raising in a tradition of deeds and not creeds, of doing for others. Luckily, one morning as I was getting ready for work with NPR in the background, I heard mention of a reverse Advent calendar. Remembering the fun of my childhood Advent calendars, I wondered what it was. So I Googled it. Perfect. I learned that during the Advent season's 4 weeks of hope, peace, love, and joy, a reverse Advent calendar asks that we give something each day rather than receiving something. I imagined a calendar of little windows revealing a food or a hygiene item to be given each day, placing them in a box that would go to the food bank just before Christmas. Fortunately, when I called my friend Margaret Ariori from the USNH Food Bank and an artist, she asked, who will cut all those windows? You can have as many as 500. Oops, we decided instead on a drawing of a holiday tree with ornament stickers that reflected not only Christmas, but also the solstice. Margaret created a beautiful drawing. I ordered stickers and I made a food list. We gave out 25 calendars to USH families at the third Saturday drive-through before Thanksgiving. Tanisha was there. She was working with Sharon on collecting donations for Christmas gifts for Waverly families. Spotting the calendars, she asked, can I get one for my niece? Then she and I decided that every child who wanted one should have one. So together we created a set for the Waverly kids. But rather than giving food, the kids are asked to perform small acts of kindness each day, giving a hug, drawing a picture for someone they love. We gave out 30 of those calendars. Tanisha's reported that the children and their parents are having a really enjoyable time doing them together. This coming Saturday, December 19th, just before the solstice and Christmas, the USNH families will return their food-filled boxes, and they'll receive gold stars to put on the top of the reverse Advent calendar tree. Tanisha will be there. She'll receive stars for the Waverly kids and help collect things for their Christmas gifts. In the midst of the pandemic, it's been spiritually and emotionally powerful for me to see the ways that we can work together as a community for all our kids, Waverly kids and USNH kids. This Saturday, you're invited to join us between 10 and 11 a.m., and you can contribute to the collection for gifts for the Waverly children. During this last week of Advent, let's be bringers of joy for these kids, remembering the words of Sophia Leon Foss, each night a child is born is a holy night.
I often talk about money as one of the tools that we have to make a difference in the world. It isn't inherently good or bad. It's just what you do with it that matters, just as a hammer can be used for construction or destruction. Today, Sharon McBlain shares why she supports USNH financially, as well as with her time and her care. I hope her story inspires you to share your generosity today.
Good morning. My name is Sharon McBlain. When our family moved from Iowa in 1983, it began a new chapter in my life. We left family and friends behind and hoped that Connecticut would be a good location for our antiquarian book business. My husband, Phil, often answered the question, "Why did you move?" by saying, "We loved Iowa, except for two things, no books and no customers." I needed new friends. I had enjoyed attending the Unitarian Society in Des Moines, so decided to check out USNH. I remember the awkward, nervous feeling those first Sundays when I entered the space filled with strangers. I loved music and soon began singing in the choir with the warm and welcoming Linda Pollock. I began to relax as USNH strangers became my new friends. The USNH community was intergenerational and the services were thought-provoking, scientific, humanist, and inspirational. But much as I loved USNH, something was missing for me during my first decade in Connecticut. In retrospect, I realized that I missed being involved with African American children and families in the inner city, as I had been when involved with Des Moines as it was trying to integrate the schools. So in 1995, when Tom Holloman, of beloved memory, invited me to meet the leadership at Waverly, I was welcomed by them. I met Mercedes Drummonds and her teenage daughter, Tanisha, who were committed to the children of Waverly, and I learned about the grassroots Waverly Youth Program. I listened and I learned and realized it was a perfect fit for me. 26 years later, Tanisha remains the heart of it. These two communities, which I love, began working toward common goals, and the Waverly USNH partnership came into being. The collaboration could not have existed without the ongoing financial support of USNH and the dedicated stream of committed volunteers. Friendships and relationships sustain me and are particularly precious when formed across the barriers of race and class in our white-dominated culture. When I make my pledge this year, I will be thinking about how central USNH is in my life. But most of all, I will be thinking about the children, all of our children.
Waiting for Now by Mandy McGlynn. Everything is about to change, and it already has. It will be, it was, it is. The dawn you eagerly await to end the long, cold darkness is already full sun far off in the east. Yet even after light's return, spring is months away. 30 long years pass after his birth, before the Messiah comes.
The waiting is the hardest part, goes the Tom Petty song, which feels like a monumental understatement for 2020. I think even the most patient people must have been struggling this year. I mean, how much longer do we need to be in lockdown? How many more milestones do we have to miss? And just how many days does March have anyway? In case you're curious, today is March 288th. Now, our culture of immediate fulfillment gives us little practice in patience. If I need an item I can't find locally, I can order it today and have it on my doorstep tomorrow. If I'm curious about some piece of trivia, I can pull out my smartphone and satisfy my curiosity with a Google search. If I need to travel, I can make it halfway around the globe in less than a day. There are exceptions, of course. I mean, trying to reach customer service by phone is a notable one. But in general, our patience muscles have atrophied in this society. Now, today is the third Sunday of Advent, a time of waiting in the Christian liturgical year. The word comes from the Latin for coming or arrival. Now, according to Justin Holcomb, an Episcopal preach and theology professor, the practice likely started in the 4th or 5th century CE and originally marked a period of fasting for those preparing for baptism on Epiphany, the famous 12th day of Christmas. By the 6th century, however, Roman Christians had tied Advent to the coming of Christ, he writes. But the coming that they had in mind was not Christ's first coming in the manger at Bethlehem, but his second coming in the clouds as the judge of the world. It was not until the Middle Ages that the Advent season was explicitly linked to Christ's first coming at Christmas. Now, these multiple levels of waiting exist simultaneously and put a different spin on the patience required. In some ways, waiting for the birth of Jesus is the easiest of the three because the stories point to it as a past event. You're waiting for something that's already happened. And Epiphany isn't that far away once you've hit December. I mean, it's essentially the present. Waiting for the second coming, though, that requires a different kind of faith. This global pandemic has had us waiting on multiple levels simultaneously. Waiting for lockdowns to end, waiting for COVID deaths to dwindle, waiting to talk about anything else, waiting to gather with loved ones, waiting for an afternoon in a cafe, waiting to pick up where we left off, waiting for a sense of normalcy, waiting to stick our heads back in the sand. Even with the recent good news about vaccines, we still need to wait until they're widely accessible and administered to everyone. At times, the pandemic has had us looking toward the past. The Spanish flu of 1918 eventually passed, and also staring intently at the immediate future. Surely we won't have to stay closed for a full year, right? Mostly, though, it has required that third kind of waiting, the one that challenges a superficial faith. This time requires something deeper, something that will sustain us in uncertain times, with an uncertain future. Now, what in your spiritual life has sustained you through the last 9 months? And because we don't know each other well yet, I want to clarify that I use the word spiritual in a very broad sense. It's that aspect of human experience that connects us to something larger than ourselves. Some find it while hiking in nature. For others, it's in the bond that forms when you're working together on voting rights. And others find solace in praying to an ineffable energy that they call God. Whatever the source, we each have these experiences of awe and connection. Whatever our understanding of the sacred, we each have a wellspring available to us. So how have you been tapping into yours? And again, Advent can provide a helpful framework for getting through the pandemic. Advent wreaths are made from greenery woven together into a circle, and 4 candles representing hope, love, joy, and peace. Each Sunday of Advent, another candle gets lit. Now, I associate the greenery with the life that is present even in the midst of winter barrenness. And the circle mimics how life weaves its way throughout a continuous cycle of the seasons. As we heard in this morning's reading, this is what is promised us. The wheel of life turns ever on, and darkness is a path to joy. So what can we learn from the 4 candles? Hope is absolutely essential when crossing uncertain terrain. It's the thing that pulls you forward into a future that's still unfolding. Now, I'm not talking about a simplistic belief that everything's going to be just fine, but the power that comes from knowing that the last word hasn't been written yet, which means we can affect the outcome of the story. Hope carries worthiness within itself, whether or not a particular hope is fulfilled. I think of my friend Diane, who was a member of a Lutheran congregation I sang with for many years. In addition to singing with the choir, she served on countless committees. She was part of a national group that advocated for full inclusion of LGBTQ+ people in Lutheran ministry. She cooked for the Thanksgiving dinner that they hosted every year, that the congregation hosted, and she was renowned for her hospitality. Now, Diane took her faith seriously and lived into it authentically. Did she waste her time because she died before the second coming of Jesus? No, of course not. Because her hope prompted her to create a loving, compassionate life along the way. These days, we have a chance to practice that kind of loving, creative, compassionate life every time we exit our homes. Spatial distancing and washing our hands signal that we care about the people around us. We make sacrifices about where and when we go places in order to keep each other safe. Now, Jesus preached, love your neighbor as yourself, which couldn't be more apt for COVID precautions. And despite the way some people act, wearing a mask is not a sacrifice on the same order as being crucified. That said, the vigilance to maintain these safety practices does take energy and attention, and that energy is fed by love. Jesus also preached, heal the sick and release the prisoner, both of which take on a particular poignancy as infection rates rise again. This pandemic has peeled back all pretense around what happens to the least of these in our society. And transformational love is how we don't put our heads back in the sand again. Unitarian religious educator Sophia Lyon-Fahs wrote, "Each night a child is born is a holy night." And while Christmas celebrates the birth of a particular child, Fahs calls us to find joy and awe in the commonplace, in every child that's born. These days, that kind of joy in the commonplace might take the form of something as simple as a walk around your neighborhood. Jesus went beyond the commonplace and celebrated those normally deemed too far outside of society to matter. Prostitutes, tax collectors, the poor, the disabled. The stories lift up the marginalized. After all, the birth was first announced to shepherds who aren't your typical power brokers. These stories recognize those outsiders' inherent worthiness. Now, can you imagine the joy of going from being reviled or dismissed by everyone to being central to a powerful teacher's ministry? For this pandemic time, there's the obvious lesson of ensuring that those on the margins aren't left out of the COVID recovery process through access to vaccines and healthcare, rent relief, unemployment benefits, and so on. USNH knows how to do that. Perhaps a more subtle lesson, though, is learning how to find joy in the brokenness of the present. We grieve having to cancel Christmas plans because we have people we love and want to spend time with. That's a gift. Even in our Zoom fatigue, we marvel at technology that allows face-to-face connection, what a college friend of mine called virtual proximity. On the whole, I've made peace with the fact of where we are right now. I could fight reality, and as Byron Katie puts it, I'd lose, but only 100% of the time. Accepting what isn't the same as giving up on the future. In the Christmas story, the angels proclaimed peace on earth, goodwill to all people. And it was aspirational then, and it's aspirational now. Again, we must wait, but we have power to affect the outcome. My contentment during the pandemic comes when I know I'm extending as much compassion and understanding as I can, because everyone is having a really hard time right now. I find peace in knowing that other humans have endured pandemics, even as I acknowledge the individual stories of those who didn't make it through. I accept current conditions as a prerequisite of building a better future. Hope, love, joy, and peace. There's much to do while we wait. As the reading proposed, let us seek in the darkness of the now and not yet for the treasures hidden there. Let us live into a faith that sustains us, whatever we understand that to be. And let us make peace with what is, even as hope carries us towards what might yet be. Amen, and blessed be.
People look east, the time is near, of the crowning of the year. Make your house fair as you are able, trim the hearth and set the table. People look east, love the guest is on the way. Furrows be glad, though earth is bare, one more seed is planted there. Give up your strength, the seed to nourish, that in course the flower may flourish. People look east, love the rose is on the way. Stars keep the watch when night is dim, one more light the bowl shall bring, shining beyond the frosty weather, bright as sun and moon together. People look east, love the star is on the way.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
This time of waiting is not wasted. Certainly not if we practice patience, if we love generously, if we touch into the hope that will pull us into the future. Do what you can today, my friends, that will help you when tomorrow comes. Go forth with courage and with kindness, and be a blessing to the world. Amen.